Another presidential post on social media this morning is adding some uncertainty to trade talks with India. In a post on Truth Social, President Trump said India is buying massive amounts of Russian oil and then selling it on the open market. He says India does not care about the, quote, Russian war machine. And because of this, Trump says he will be, quote, substantially raising the tariff paid by India to the U.S. Recall that last week, Trump had outlined India would pay 25% in tariffs. For more on this, let's bring in Adam Farrar with Bloomberg Economics in Washington. Adam, how do you read this latest threat from President Trump?
So it's interesting to see the president returning to these attacks on India today. We saw him escalate his rhetoric since last week, particularly as he sought to combine and link India and the ongoing difficulties in the trade negotiations with the United States with the president's changing position on Russia's lack of progress on its ceasefire in Ukraine and his threats of what he has called both secondary sanctions and/or secondary tariffs related to its oil exports. So here we saw, yet again an attack on India, particularly in relation to oil, following up on some aggressive language last week that even referred to India as a dead economy. The outside question here is how much of this is seeking greater leverage in the trade negotiations, or if he is focused on this question of Russia's lack of compliance and is willing to move forward with some idea of secondary tariffs or sanctions. All that being said, I would say that at least on the oil front, the Indians have kind of shrugged this off, or at least did so last week, kind of indicating that they see lots of opportunities to move their purchases elsewhere if necessary, with some increase in price given the discount they've received from Russia, but negligible on overall Indian economic performance. But we're going to have to wait and see right now.
Absolutely. And Bloomberg has been reporting that, according to people familiar with the situation, the Modi government has not given Indian oil refiners instructions to stop buying Russian oil at this point. I guess if we zoom out a little bit, Adam, it feels like the president is having trouble with BRIC nations. You've got this situation with India. You also, of course, have him realizing that Putin is not playing ball at all as well on Ukraine. Brazil says it won't submit to President Trump's pressure and is open to trade talks if it's being treated as an equal partner here. And of course, talks with China are taking place, but it doesn't appear that the president can push Beijing to move any faster than that country is ready to. What do you make of that?
So I would say, outside of the fact that the president has drawn more attention to BRICS and singled them out for particularly plans to potentially move away from the dollar as an international currency, I think what we're seeing here are actually very separate issues. The United States and the president see China in its own category. The relationship and efforts to negotiate with India follow a long history between the president and Prime Minister Modi that started off very positively, both in his last term and at the beginning of this term, with the Indians seeking a more traditional trade agreement, including potentially congressional authorization of that agreement, starting even before the tariffs were released. And then Brazil falls into a significantly different category, given the president's both issues with the current administration and Lula da Silva, but moreover the former president and how he feels he's being treated, and his efforts to use trade and tariffs actually to address domestic policy in Brazil. So I don't think this is really tied to BRICS in particular. And I think each of these situations are going to move out on their own path. With China certainly on the best path right now, we still expect the president to move forward with an extension of the tariff pause here in the coming days, although we haven't heard that yet after their supposedly positive talks with the Chinese last week. And, real questions about where India is going to go and whether we're going to see progress on negotiations. But right now, U.S. negotiators aren't expected to meet with the Indians until late August.
Okay. I also want to get your take on what's going on with Switzerland. Certainly, the government there was shocked by the announcement of 39% tariffs, and a lot of it is due to the fact that if you look at the trade balance, clearly the U.S. has a trade deficit with Switzerland here, and that's something that the president is really keenly focused on. What is your read on how Switzerland resolves that? They're trying to make nice by saying they're going to make a more attractive offer. What is the president looking for from Switzerland?
So I think the outstanding question here is whether Switzerland is able to find something that they can give that gives the president the win that he wants and the headline that he's looking for. And that was what was missing last week. They had very positive, from all reports, negotiations with lower levels of the Trump administration, particularly following their successful hosting of the Geneva talks with the Chinese. And I think all personnel and government officials in Switzerland really felt they were going to get a deal. But when they got on the phone, President Trump, as he has done in almost all of the negotiations, reportedly, he pushed for more, and Switzerland had nothing else to give. And I think the question now is, what are they willing to put on the table? And there are questions as to what really could be done on the Swiss side. There's potential for large weapons purchases, particularly of aircraft. There's some talk of LNG and other energy, although that's pretty small. But the question, again, is not what it is, but whether it's big enough for the president to claim victory and walk away from the table.